From the CyberHub bunker and studio, you're tuning in to the CyberHub Podcast. And now for your host and CISO, James Azar.
Well, good morning, security gang. Welcome to another episode of the CyberHub Podcast. I've had a busy traveling day, and so obviously I'm out of the studio, not in my natural habitat. And so thank you for tuning in this Tuesday morning, March 12th, 2024. We've got a busy and packed show today. We're going to get right into it. Now, I had a really busy day traveling yesterday. I'm in the great state of Louisiana and been so excited to be here. I got in really late yesterday, haven't been able to settle in and find my coffee spot in time for the show recording. So I won't have a coffee this morning. I will have one tomorrow. So for today, coffee cup cheers, y'all. Let's get this show pumping because we've got a lot to talk about. And let's go ahead and get right into it. So TeamCity's vulnerability is now being exploited in active ransomware attacks. These are CVEs 2024-2719-8 and 2719-9. There are two serious authentication bypass vulnerabilities. Now, the deal here is a little bit more significant than that. We've obviously talked about this extensively in previous episodes of the show, and you can see that on our YouTube channel or on our Substack. But the one thing I'll tell you right now is this. There was a miscommunication here and kind of a blunder going on between Rapid7, which discovered these vulnerabilities, and JetBrains, who was responsible for disclosing the vulnerabilities. And there was a significant miscommunication there where Rapid7 felt like this wasn't going to get shared fast enough. And JetBrains felt like Rapid7 was just going to immediately disclose the details without giving them a chance to patch it or giving them very little opportunity to inform customers before it becomes public. The reason there's this concern and this miscommunication is, one, we have to do better, but number two, we know that the moment there's a vulnerability anywhere, within 24 hours, there are live exploits and threat actors trying to take advantage of them. So the approach here by Rapid7 and JetBrains, the lack of communication there and the lack of having some sort of homogeneous approach to this thing ended up causing a kind of who took the punch first, disclosing a whole bunch of details, which is now leading to the mass exploitation of this, where it's actively being used as a vulnerability to deploy ransomware into environments. GuidePoint Security first reported on Friday of last week that ransomware group named Bien Lien has been targeting critical infrastructure using this one for initial access, and obviously many others are all saying they're seeing people are seeing it abused for DDoS attacks and so much more. And again, we as an industry have to be better at these types of communication. This should have been something where we're all on the same team. Let's get it done correctly. And unfortunately here we dropped the ball as a whole in the industry. Our other story today, financial services firms, according to FSISEC and Akamai, are experiencing 150% year-over-year growth driven in DDoS attacks. Financial services accounted for about 35% of all DDoS attacks, even surpassing the gaming industry, which previously led all sectors. They typically were around 10 to 15, 35 last year. Akamai in September said they prevented a DDoS attack on a major U.S. financial institution. The attack peaked at 633.7 gigabytes per second and 55 million packets per second. It was driven in large part by a hacktivist group using DDoS as a tool to disrupt institution at a time of rising geopolitical tensions, beginning with the Russia-Ukraine war in February of 2022, and then later on after the brutal Hamas attacks on Israel on October 7th. So there's a whole bunch of geopolitical reasons why your organization or why you would be on the attack, a victim of this specific attack, and you have to know your place in there. And unfortunately, like I said yesterday on the show, geopolitics, they play a critical component of what we do. If we don't know it, if we don't understand it, if we're not talking about it, this isn't about taking sides. It's about preparing for what's coming forth, and that's really critical. And the French government, for their end, are now watching a whole series of cyber attacks take place against the entire institution of the French government, where over the weekend. Prime Minister Gabriel Attal's office said in a statement that the attacks started Sunday night. They hit multiple government ministries. They didn't provide many details. By Monday afternoon, it said the impact of the attacks had been reduced for most services and access to government sites had been restored. Anonymous Sudan, which has nothing to do with the country of Sudan, likely to be a pro-Russia hacktivist group, claimed responsibility for the attacks in an online post. The French Prime Minister's Office and Digital Safety Agency wouldn't comment on the claim or provide details over what was attacked. French government has made a push to improve cyber defenses before the Paris Olympics this summer. And obviously, with the geopolitical tensions rising in Europe with the Russia-Ukraine war, and then what's going on between Israel and the terrorist organization Hamas, there's obviously some stuff here that might have an impact. And France hosting the Olympics can also have significant impact. Imagine trying to disrupt that as well. So that plays an aspect there too. Okta is denying that the data leaked online after a threat actor shared files was allegedly stolen during the October 2023 cyber attack on the company. Okta obviously has had a big target on its back. It's gone through its fair share of cybersecurity events over the last 2 years, has now had some information being leaked online. Okta, for its for its benefit, says we've looked at this data. That wasn't stolen from us. Cybersecurity criminal using the alias Dark Not Evil claimed to be releasing an Okta database containing information of 3,800 customers that was stolen during the breach last year. Today he said in his post, "Today I have uploaded the Okta database for you all. This breach is being shared in Beehive at Intel Broker. Thanks for reading and enjoy." So we'll see if that really is the case there and what it is. Bleeping Computer contacted Okta over the weekend, and they say that this isn't linked to any one of those, and they're not even sure that it's coming from Okta. Cyber intel firm Klarna also reviewed the shared data and independently corroborated that the data does not belong to Okta, and it believes it was from a different company that was breached in July of last year. Sweden's payment group Klarna must pay a fine of 7.5 million kroners or $733,000 for violating GDPR rules by not providing sufficient information to its users, according to a Swedish Court of Appeal ruling yesterday. Klarna had failed to give clients sufficient information about how it would store personal data, the court said in a statement, adding the information was unclear or difficult to access. And GDPR is now 4 or 5 years in implementation. We're starting to see case law being established over the standards, and where some of the vagueness or the gray lines were with GDPR are now starting to become established in law, meaning there's case law for regulators to fine you a specific way or to give you and set a standard that may have been vague in GDPR to do so. This one is going to be significant. A lower court ruled last year that Klarna should have paid 6 million crowns. Now they're paying 7.5 million after the appeal, and that's the risk they took, and that's what's happening there. Technology giant Broadcom on Monday announced the merger of Carbon Black and Symantec into a new business unit tasked with combining network and data telemetry with endpoint detection and response technology. The $69 billion acquisition of VMware, which owned Carbon Black, Broadcom created a new enterprise security group business unit to manage its cybersecurity portfolio and work on focusing the best of Symantec's data network protection tools with Carbon Black's EDR and application control products. Broadcom had acquired Symantec back in 2019 for $10.7 billion, and now an additional $69 billion by Broadcom for the acquisition of VMware, which owned Carbon Black. Bringing both network and data telemetry to Carbon Black will enable greater visibility and control for a joint customer. This is according to Rob Greer, the VP and GM of the new enterprise security group. They'll invest some R&D to improve, extend the life of the products the customers are using both on-prem and in hybrid cloud situations. And so consolidation continues and big players are jumping into it. Vulnerabilities affecting the linear building access control products, including a security flaw, had been exploited in the wild, have now been patched nearly 5 years after their initial disclosure. This was first released in May of 2019 at CyberWeek's ICS Cybersecurity Conference, Diogo Kristic, a researcher who at the time worked for industrial cybersecurity firm Applied Risk, disclosed information on more than 100 vulnerabilities found in building management and access control systems from Nortec, Prima Systems, Optorega, and Comptrols. Nortec stood out at the time because it was the only vendor that had not released patches and claimed to have released fixes, but now nearly 5 years later, they finally patched those. So a 5-year patch cycle, y'all. Can't be too bad. Well, I mean, we haven't seen any breaches on it, so a cool headline, but really not a lot of impact to the business. In our final story this morning, Russia has detained a South Korean national for the first time ever on a cyber espionage charge and transferred him from Vladivostok to Moscow for further investigation. This was first being reported by the Russian news agency TASS. During the investigation of an espionage case, a South Korean citizen, Bok Won-soon, was identified and detained and put into custody under a court order. Won-soon has been accused of handing over classified top-secret information to an unnamed foreign intelligence agency. Won-soon was detained in Vladivostok earlier this year and shifted to Moscow late last month. He's currently being held at the Lefterovo pre-trial detention center. His arrest has been extended for another 3 months until the 15th of June. The detention center is currently also a place where American journalist Evan Groshenovich is being held, awaiting trial on suspicion of espionage. He's obviously denied these charges, and Russia constantly does this kind of stuff. It's a bargaining chip in order for them to release people they find of value in those countries as well. That's it for our show this morning. Short, sweet, to the point when we're traveling. We'll be back tomorrow with a whole lot more, and hopefully by then I'll have an espresso to break bread with all y'all. Go check out our Substack. Check out all the latest and greatest on YouTube. Please make sure to follow us and subscribe anywhere you get your podcast or your videos. And until then, have a great rest of your day, and most importantly, stay cyber safe.
We love feedback, so make sure to connect with us on social media and subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast listening platform.